As many celebrities have learned to their cost, but ordinary people too, the internet never forgets. It's like a shitty elephant. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Delicious. Today is What Do Men Want? Masculinity and Its Discontents by the British philosopher Nina Power, published this year in 2022. Cool. Let's get right into it. Nina is a writer, editor, and translator, and she is also the senior editor of Compact magazine. And there's a link below to a great article by her on their site. And though I would have gladly paid for it, she sent me her book for free. Thank you, Nina. I originally came across her work when I took an online course on the philosophy of Georges Bataille, taught by her and another fellow named Justin Murphy. Cool guy. Runs this thing called the Other Life Podcast, I think. You can find him on Twitter. He's usually throwing all kinds of provocative shit on there. It's good. You can also find Nina on Twitter as well, at Nina_Compact. I also reviewed Nina's book Platform for patrons last year, I think. It's kind of this experimental poem, maybe a prose poem, I'm not sure. A very unique book which I recommend you check out. I've linked to it below. Also, please check out that book's publisher, Morbid Books, as well. Kind of a cheeky British group of fiendish literarians. Some overlapping connections with the fat white family, so sort of that type of humor. It's great. So years ago, Nina wrote a book published by Zero Books called One Dimensional Woman, which was sort of her perspective on feminism at the time and where she saw things going. It was a polemic, as she describes it. That is, it was sort of an attack on certain forms of feminism that she took issue with. Rightfully so, in my opinion, though I have not read the book. This is not a polemic. This is, maybe you could argue that some of the material is politically charged, but the tone of this book is very friendly. I want to start off with that. Very unusual these days for a book speaking about these subjects, that is the relationships between men and women, and generally the state of the state of relationships between people in general here in the modern world. Which aren't so hot. It's not as politically loaded a book as one might expect in this climate. Dismissing any attempt at a blame game, the book is rather a reminder of the great things that come about when men and women are coexisting together in the world, and celebrating the differences between the sexes, while simultaneously making a deeply disturbing diagnosis of just how far things have gone in the wrong direction, not only between the sexes, but with everybody. I think it's a difficult time to navigate no matter who you are. I have no advice, and neither does she, really. If there is at all, then it's very little of the book, but there's very little should. There's very little, there's no 12-step plan here, right? She's just really illustrating, she's kind of synthesizing the major issues that she sees in modern culture between men and women, and how that relates to this increasingly fucked up world that we're living in. It's a difficult time to navigate no matter who you are. It is the worst I have ever seen. And I think, many of us could ask our parents and be like, Mom, Dad, is this the worst it's ever been? They're going to be like, yeah. Or at least it's the weirdest, And I think it's about to get a whole lot worse with current events as well. So, buckle up. And for that reason, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Your mental health is extremely important. That's why if you're experiencing a significant amount of anxiety, I suggest you check out BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp. It's a very strange, depressing, kind of anxiety-inducing, expensive era. So you gotta take care of your mental health. If you think you might be feeling stressed, depressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, hey, join the club. I think anything that can help you with that is phenomenal. And as long as it's healthy, help you in a way that is constructive and not destructive or addictive and so on. We gotta be able to navigate this time. We gotta be able to come to terms with what's going on around us, with everything, with the political conflicts, the economic problems, everything. We gotta be able to stay strong. And no man or woman is an island. So, when you're stressed or anxious, eating right can help, exercise can help, and therapy can help. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen to and help you. You can talk to your therapist in a private online environment at your convenience. There's a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 therapist network that gives you access to help that may not be available in your area. Maybe you're traveling for work, or maybe you live in a small town right now, or maybe you're just single and you're going at it alone in some new place. Sometimes you just don't have people to talk to, right? Or everybody else is too busy and they got their own things going because they're freaking out about stuff. Totally get it. We're all freaking out right now. But you're definitely not alone. So all you do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. That's pretty fast. Then you schedule secure phone and video sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is confidential. You can also request a new therapist at no additional charge anytime. So join the 2 million people plus who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/BTF or follow the link below. Thanks a bunch. Nina's primary focal point for this work is that the relationship between men and women, in her words, should not be seen as a zero-sum game, wherein if one party wins something, the other loses just automatically by default. This is the world as viewed through branches of feminism, anti-feminism, or certain sections of the manosphere, men's rights activists, MGTOW, that kind of thing, and identity politics in general. Frankly, that whole world, which is quite a high percentage of culture these days, is a miserable and exhausting place to inhabit. And I avoid it, I keep it, I don't fuck with any of it. I've seen all this shit come up, I'm done with it, man. She demonstrates that some parties or branches appear to be portraying life in this respect, life and relationships between the sexes in this respect. That is, as a zero-sum game. And there are some very real sneaky consequences of women's liberation that, rather than a parent-child rivalry of some sort of insidious patriarchal structure under this current mode of capitalism, of the crony variety, I might add, have actually created a kind of demented, depressing sibling rivalry wherein all subjects, all siblings, right, men and women, are pitted against each other in competition and subject to market law, right? Regardless of sex and with zero moral or ethical priority, as far as the system is concerned. The law of capital rules, basically. And it does. I think this is plainly obvious to anybody living in the West in the 21st century. Welbeck picked up on this. Everybody knows this, right? It's what you see every day when you're going out and working at your job or wherever. This is the attitude. Everybody is out for themselves, and it doesn't matter the sex of whoever's applying for the job. Capital will flow where it goes. This is what happens. Capital doesn't care about ethics or priorities or people or sex or whatever. Capital cares about capital. Right? It is wholly indifferent to anyways. As far as I can see, this makes a lot of sense. This theory is pretty sound. It appears correct. Now, I don't think she has any kind of rose-colored glasses, so to speak. To be honest, in this era, who can? But her sort of reasonable optimism with a good sense of humor is something I find quite refreshing. She has how would you say it? She's a very positive spirit. She's like, come on, guys, we can do it, It's that kind of tone. While this book is humorously titled, What Do Men Want?, it's certainly not some sort of serious attempt at telling men what they want, of course. I believe it's a play on a question that Freud asked a woman once, famously, which is, what does a woman want? So inside you'll find writings on various sociological and cultural problems that we're all facing today in the West, concerning the sexes, men and women, straight men and women, and their relationship to one another. For example, the concept of the patriarchy, the Me Too movement, the abundance of pornography and its detrimental effects, toxic masculinity in general, the positive attributes stemming from it, which seem to have all but been forgotten, of which there are plenty, just like femininity. Michel Houellebecq, in his writings, his observations, the strange world of dating apps, the appeal of Jordan Peterson to young men, guilty, though I kind of fell off of the carnivore diet stuff and the three-piece suits after a while. And then after the Russia thing, that tone just got so bitter, and now it's just really, really weird. I don't know what's going on. For the record, he was a very nice guy. I liked him. I like him. I just don't know anymore. Things are getting a little dicey out there. You can watch my interview with him from years ago, link below, on Patreon if you're a patron. But yeah, the massive popularity and the appeal of him, especially amongst young men because of the lack of paternal guidance, which should be obvious to everyone. Pickup artists, The Game and Neil Strauss and all of that, and Roosh V's conversion from a pickup artist to Orthodox Christian. That was kind of a compelling anecdote. And finally, and perhaps most importantly or most tragically, the disturbingly high suicide rates of men in the West. And I learned the leading cause of death for men under the age of 45 in the UK. It's not that high here in the States, but that's bad. Anyways, the book contains all of that and more. This is from the introduction. If we want to live together in a healthier way, however, We must be committed to the idea that transformation is possible, and that people can become better human beings, capable of overcoming difficult situations and refining their beliefs. Hear, hear. Otherwise, we will grow increasingly apart and segregated, not only by class and country, but by race and sex. There may be, of necessity, times when men and women want to be apart, or have spaces to themselves. But if we are committed to a mixed world, then we must be truly committed to it, to not shy away from who we are, in all of our positive and negative aspects. Our post-Christian age is extraordinarily unforgiving, often tying people to a single mistake they've made, or treating people as mere examples of a negative category, rather than as complex individuals in their own right. As many celebrities have learned to their cost, but ordinary people too, the internet never forgets. It's like a shitty elephant. If you tweeted the wrong thing at a certain point, said something clumsy or deemed to be harmful, or if you once upset someone, you will always have people on hand, usually people you've never met, to remind everyone of your sin. She's totally right. Hence my questioning as to whether the internet is a net positive. I don't think it is. YouTube's pretty cool. Hanging out with you is pretty cool. You know. But there are days when I just want to run the fuck away. Become an accountant. I'm dead serious. This isn't a good direction. I don't know where this goes. But, you know, I'm happy that there are people like her sort of, again, synthesizing these major issues and sort of laying them out on display. So we can all kind of weigh the consequences of our actions and determine the best direction to take moving forward. Anyways. So this book is a friendly appeal to reconciliation between the sexes, men and women, in particular straight men and women. You know, when it comes to homosexuality or trans issues and all that, those are entirely other books. There's just so much material on those and so many things to go through. It's just, this is a very narrowly focused book. The book is also a diagnosis of an increasingly, what I would describe as a techno-dystopic West that is miserable, overly medicated, addicted, and also apparently suffering from something of a collective sexual dry spell, at least with the younger generation, and a deep-seated growing fear of each other. Understandably, because they're under a near all-encompassing 24/7 surveillance. Putting it bluntly, everybody is far too comfortable masturbating to a screen. Both sexes. Why? Because reality has become fucking dangerous. And you can have your life ruined by a mob on Twitter. Now, you may say it's just the people who deserve it who have their life, ruined on Twitter. But you just wait. You just wait till your turn comes. It's a frightening place, the modern world. It is. It's fucked up. Frankly, I'm on the side of leaving the internet. I'm like, dismantle it, And now people are being encouraged to sort of out each other to employers, and there's the whole doxing thing. Race relations are going to shit. They're the worst I have ever seen in my entire life. It's a complete like you just put the fucking Jeep in reverse and just gunned it. There's generally an increasing intolerance of one another. And this goes nowhere good. There's nothing good that's going to come from this. Obviously. It's bafflingly obvious to me, at least. And to her as well, it seems. And we happen to think this is the best time to be alive because progress only goes in one direction. Things just keep getting better. Right? Today, the internet exists as a gigantic repository of all the terrible things that people are capable of thinking. We are spying and being spied on. It is not a particularly carefree or joyful medium. We often run the risk of our tools using us, of negatively conditioning our attitude towards each other. The internet often presents a false and unbalanced picture of how things really are, yet there we also find our desires mirrored back at us, sometimes horrifyingly so. The internet has made us, in some ways, less open to random encounters, to chance, to risk, yet life is made up of these things. As the savage says in Brave New World, "But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. I'm claiming the right to be unhappy." I suppose a modern adjustment and fairly radical position would be the right to be unentertained, or perhaps unstimulated, the right to be bored. I don't know if the internet is a net positive invention. Seems obviously so, perhaps, but I'm not convinced, actually, ironically, somebody who makes their living on the internet. Now, granted, you know, of course, like with the Me Too thing, like as she says in the book, like maybe this needed to happen to some degree, like in order to take down these guys who were taken down, you know, the big figures such as like, you know, Weinstein and the dude, Ranier, the Nixium cult dude, that guy, you know, like some justice occurred, you know, from the Me Too movement. But some other things kind of got a little weird and continue to be. So anyways, Nina wrote this because she's been disturbed by the increasing division between the sexes over the last decade or so, heavily exacerbated by technology. And that really resonates with me, because I feel the same way. I think this is fucked. In tracking everything, in adjudicating and weighing up what counts as something that could later be used against someone, we have entered a truly horrible hall of mirrors. It is not surprising that many young men and women are choosing to opt out of this potential nightmare and settle down earlier, live traditionally and reasonably, exactly the kind of conservative or religious life that contemporary liberal culture has set itself up in opposition to. To enjoy on the terms of contemporary consumer capitalism and internet surveillance is a contradiction in terms. It is no wonder then that at the extremes we are seeing attacks on people, famous or otherwise, for power imbalances in their relationships. If we water down terms such as abuse to include any time anyone has been hurt, it will be safer simply to never engage with each other again. You want me to read it again? If we water down terms such as abuse to include any time anyone has been hurt, it will be safer simply to never engage with each other again. Right. We will be consigned to a life lived safely online. Consuming the culture various platforms deem we should watch and talking to our friends from behind virtual glass. So I think what she's kind of tapping into is a collective desire for the real in all of its ugliness and pain. All the awkward, bizarre physicality that comes with it. And if that desire is not stronger than the one to remain online behind the digital glass, boy, brothers and sisters, we have a problem. I certainly believe there will be a reconciliation, you know, between the sexes, if only because we'll get so goddamn tired of fighting and remember how much fun it was to hang out again. So the book in part is a celebration of the beautiful ways in which men and women can coexist, whether that is platonically, romantically, or both, you know. So you should read it. Anybody who is freaked out by the modern era and misses the days when men and women could comfortably hang out in person and both of them could fuck up and be forgiven and still fall in love with each other or work together or just hang out or whatever. The 90s, basically, for anybody who misses the 90s. The book itself is great. It's not bad at all. But unfortunately, the whole project in and of itself, for me, is a bit of a Hail Mary at this point. Whatever track we're on, we're most certainly on. Though it's inspiring to see somebody so lucidly diagnosing the problems we face. If there's any hope of a possibility of getting a handle on these issues, it's going to be people like Nina Power who are leading the way. Better than food, definitely. So what did I dislike about the book? Well, you know, it's not that I disliked it so much, but there's a lot of railing against capitalism in the book. I'm neutral on capitalism. Anecdotally, in my experience, in my life, coming from somebody who's not super financially educated or understands the mechanisms of it, I mean, it's a very mysterious system to me. All I can say, anecdotally, is that it seems to be the best available system on the menu, so to speak, in spite of its immense and frequently obvious ethical and social drawbacks. I suppose what concerns me is that capitalism, in fact, is a replication of the laws of nature to the point wherein it appears that everything has been poisoned by it. But in fact, it's merely just another natural example demonstrating the unfathomable unfairness and cruelty of nature itself in all its anti-egalitarian horror. The Instagram page Nature is Metal is probably just the quickest way to demonstrate this concept. Warning before you go there, it's pretty brutal shit. But, you know, I will say it cuts right to the chase. Yeah, in no way am I suggesting that this is a good thing. As a matter of fact, and perhaps, you know, Power would agree, I'm not sure, what is natural is not necessarily good at all. as far as what we humans believe to be good, that is like defined as like what is in the best interests for the continuation and harmony of human life with the least amount of suffering, if that's our definition of good. Good's a wibbly wobbly definition sometimes, all the time. So yeah, what is good is not necessarily synonymous with what is natural. In fact, frequently the two things are violently at odds. So, I think I read that Welbeck hates birds of prey, which is interesting. There's a reason for that. Nature is a far more all-encompassing and complex mechanism, not concerned in any way with us on an individual level. Now, of course, there are pros and cons to that. Ultimately, all of us, male, female, or otherwise, painfully submit to God nature, or goddess if you prefer. Except for Peter Thiel. His whole thing is to live forever. But, I'm keeping tabs on that too. That's an interesting goal. She also brings up Mark Fisher, the fellow who wrote Capitalist Realism, which actually I have not read, but it is in the mail, and who tragically committed suicide in 2017. And he was a friend of hers. And so I think she's going through capitalism and the whole idea of it through his writings, and I haven't read them yet, but I need to. I don't know if I'll agree with them. He seems like a really smart guy. But yeah, as far as capitalism is concerned, I'm not sure if capitalism is exactly the issue. It could be. But yeah, I don't know what other system is available to us, really. I really don't. I think that's the major issue. It's like nobody has been able to outthink capitalism as far as a sustainable system of economic productivity that can be the most useful for the most people. I don't know what else there is. And I believe Fisher's whole thing is actually a criticism of capitalism post-2008 with the bailout of the banks, which is, I don't know anything. I think that historically speaking, that's going to be the most catastrophic, like identifiable marker on what led to the biggest collapse in human history. Just me? Don't know. But I have a feeling, because that's crony capitalism, right? They're not allowing the banks to fail because they all want to keep their fucking money. And so if you fuck with the system, then that's going to show up down the road. The bubble's going to get bigger, and it's going to later down the road, they're kicking the can, basically. And it's going to be catastrophic for whoever inherits that problem or series of problems, many, many problems. So, yeah, I got to read that book. Anyways, more on that later. Anyway, so it's not really something I disliked about the book. It's just something that I'm wondering. I don't agree with it right off the bat because I don't know if that's actually the major issue. It seems obvious the way she phrases it, the way she poses the nature of the problem, but I don't know. I have to interrogate that on my own. So, more to come. Should I start reviewing finance books, history of finance? Economics. I actually think it's really, really fascinating. I have one on the shelf that a couple on the shelf actually. I think I have a history of the Fed too, which I've been meaning to read about those fuckers. Anyways, so in the meantime, while we're stuck with all these issues and challenges, addled, lonely, and painfully aware of time slipping out of our hands, we may as well be nice to our neighbors of the opposite sex, cut them some much needed slack, and occasionally grab a beer or whichever beverage you prefer and make some inappropriate jokes that risk offending the other, which they will from time to time. But we can get over it because we're adults. And when the offensive joke hits and we both laugh until we're crying, we'll realize that those are the moments worth living for, together. Because if we don't, you don't want to know what happens and neither do I. Because it will quickly not be worth living for. Yeah. So on that happy note, so what do men want? What do men want? Well, she provides some answers from some male friends of hers in the book. And this is very humorous. Well, let's see here. When I asked male friends what they thought men wanted, they answered with, among other things, the following. Tell me when you find out. A pleasant woman. To be left alone. Pussy. To hang out with my male friends. To be a good man. A shed. A woman who will let me be myself. An easy life. Nigella Lawson. Why are you asking me? I'm a rubbish man. And a beer. Yeah, that's about right. What do I want, you ask? Currently, a giant power bank as a backup for hurricanes. Woulda, shoulda. In lieu of that, I don't know. World domination? Working on it. It's a dream. I got a plan. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, thank you very much for watching. I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video. I place their names in this mason jar, and for each review I do, I pull out a name, and whoever's name I pull out shall receive a hard copy of the book, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. If you would like to get in on that and help support the show, you can click on the link below or go to patreon.com/books are better than food and donate $5 or more per video. And I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much for helping to keep this whole thing going. For $1 or more, you'll get access to the Patron-Only Reviews, plus more cool stuff I've listed below. Check it out. Thanks a bunch. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Sorry about that. Thank you very much to all the patrons, especially those of you who have stuck around this last year when everything has just been going to absolute shit and everything is way more expensive and people need to rein back in their disposable income. Those of you who have stuck around and helped support the show, I wouldn't be doing this without you. I really appreciate it. Seriously, it means a lot. So thank you. To my patrons, thank you very much to all of you. And best of luck. Okay, here we go. Hey. Stuart C. Thanks so much, Stuart. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive Nina Powers' What Do Men Want? Plus some delicious coffee. And I hope you love both. Cheers. Please subscribe if you have not already and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and always remember, bring a book wherever you go. All right, stay safe out there, be nice to each other, and those of the opposite sex, take care of yourselves, have a good night, talk to you soon. Ciao.